What's up, guys? We are back for day 4 of the NCAA tournament on Sunday, March 24th. The second round games have been great so far. The Saturday games haven't all finished yet, but things have gone pretty well. We got our first 4 games right. Arizona came through clutch with that 10-point win and cover. Gonzaga -4, that was a lock. UNC came through, that was a pick we weren't super sure about, and Iowa State came up big, covering that 6.5 number. NC State, unfortunately, that was a weird one, but we escaped with a push. We had NC State -6, and they won by 6 points in overtime. Tennessee, Duquesne, and Oregon haven't finished, although that is certainly looking like a loss for us in that Duquesne plus 10.5. Illinois just had too much firepower for them there. But regardless, we've got a winning day locked up. We'll take that, put it on the board. I hope you guys were with us on those early games, especially. Tournament time is the absolute best time of the year. Let's get after it. Smash the thumbs up button if you want to see our picks every day and subscribe to the channel. The growth lately has been amazing, but over 75% of viewers still aren't subscribed. It's 100% free and can keep you from missing these picks. Our videos are sponsored by SomethingSpread.com. Click the link in the description to go over there and join our free email list and check out our top confidence plays on all the major sports. Comment below to let us know if your bracket is even still slightly alive and how you're doing with all your bets for today, or anything else you want to say about these picks, these videos, or anything you see here. Give us your best tournament predictions. I respond to every single comment, and I'll give you my best advice on your picks to help us all put up some wins. Now let's get into our first game of the day. We've got Colorado taking on Marquette. Colorado has had a very tough go of it so far in the NCAA tournament. They've had to play 2 games already. They're part of the first 4 in, where they took down Boise State 60-53. It was a very close game all the way down to the wire. Colorado did end up coming away with a comfortable looking win, but it was not a comfortable game. They barely were able to get the win over Boise State. Then they played against Florida. That was an absolutely crazy game. Colorado coming out on top 102-100, barely getting that win there. They've played a ton of basketball in this tournament. It's pretty wild. In that game, we saw every Colorado starter score in double figures. I guess that's not that shocking for a game that was that high scoring. Pretty insane stuff. We saw De Silva have a fantastic game. KJ Simpson played really well in his 34 minutes. He put up 23 points. He shot 7 of 12 from the field, and he did a good job of getting to the line. The Colorado bench did not soak up a ton of minutes. We did see Williams scored 9 points off the pine in his 25 minutes, so that's pretty good. But this is not a deep team. They don't have a lot of depth, and they could be getting a little bit tired at this point. Colorado, all season long, they've been a great offensive team led by KJ Simpson and Tristan De Silva. Their rebounding is decent, but it's partially a product of them playing at a faster pace. Their defense is not very good. That's our biggest concern in this one. Can Colorado defend against Marquette? The Golden Eagles have been an absolute monster of a team. They blew out Western Kentucky as predicted. It took them a little bit to get going in the first half. It was the first game for Tyler Kolek coming back from his absence with his oblique injury, but in that second half, it looks like everything is absolutely fine. In that win, the Golden Eagles put up 87 points. They absolutely destroyed Western Kentucky in the second half. Cam Jones went nuts for 28 points. We saw Kolek play very well, scoring 18 points, dishing out 11 assists. He got back into the flow of the offense pretty quickly. Their bench looked decent, but not great. They're not a team that is going to play a ton of bench minutes, but we did see Gold and Ross come in to soak up some minutes before they ended up eventually clearing the bench in that game. Marquette shot 36% from 3, a decent number for them, but they can do better than that. They also only went 8 of 15 from the free throw line. That's pretty disappointing. I think they'll be looking to improve on that a little bit, and I think they definitely can. The boards could be a little bit of a concern for Marquette in this game. They haven't been a great rebounding team all season long, but I think they'll find a way to at least hold on and do something to keep things relatively even on the boards going against the Colorado team that is going to try and go shot for shot with them. It's going to be very interesting to see if they can actually do that, though. Marquette has been a pretty good defensive team all season long. They do lean on their offense a little bit more, and they have marquee talent. The Golden Eagles are a staggering 21-13-1 against the spread overall this season. They're only -3.5 in this game. Colorado's barely made it through its first 2 tournament opponents, and I don't think we're going to see them make it past Marquette in this one. Give me the Golden Eagles -3.5 in this game. Next up, we've got Utah State going up against Purdue. Utah State looked absolutely dominant in their opening round game, taking down TCU's 88-72. A fantastic performance by the Aggies here. They played some great defense in that game. They did not win the battle of the boards, but they did not need to. They shot the ball well from the field. They got to the free throw line and knocked down 14 of 15 free throw attempts, shooting 55% from the field overall. That's going to be a tall task going up against Purdue, but this team might be up to the challenge. Osabor looked like an absolute monster out there with his size. I don't know that he's going to be really the one defending Eddie. We're going to see more of Isaac Johnson defending Eddie in this one, and he can almost match up up size-wise. He's a legit 7-footer. He likes to play on the perimeter, and that is not what Eddie likes to do, so it'll be interesting to see if Eddie can really come out there and guard him at the three-point line. Johnson went 2 for 4 from deep against TCU, and he just played great in that game overall. Up and down the roster, the Aggies have looked very, very good. They closed out their season relatively well. In their non-conference schedule, they looked pretty good. They didn't play a lot of tough non-conference games, but the ones they did play, they looked pretty good in. Utah State is 15-15-2 against the spread in this one. That's not a great number, and they're going to need everything they have going up against Purdue. The Boilermakers comfortably dominated in their opening round game, knocking off Grambling 78-50. It really felt like that game was all about Zach Edey piling up as many points and as many rebounds as he could possibly get. He finished things off with 30 points and 21 rebounds, but when you're going up against a team like Grambling that has absolutely no one that can match up against you in size or anything else, and you're just getting fed the ball constantly, you're going to put up some cartoonish type numbers. Purdue played relatively well down the stretch, but man, if Edey struggles, this team struggles pretty hard. They're obviously a good rebounding team with him out there. He's a monster. He's 7'4" or whatever they have him listed as. He might even be taller than his listed height. He is an absolute giant out there, but Utah State might have the answer for that. They have another 7-footer to match up against him, and it's a 7-footer who can spread the floor, so it's going to be very interesting to see how he does. This game could either make his draft stock definitely rise or his draft stock fall drastically. We're seeing Purdue is minus 11.5 in this one. That's not who we're going with, guys. Give me Utah State and the points. I think they find a way to keep this game competitive. I don't know if they'll be able to win it. I'm not going to be sprinkling the money line in this game, but I definitely like the Aggies to keep this game competitive, to keep things close. They've got some big bodies and some height to throw out there. This is going to be a competitive game. Next up, we've got the James Madison Dukes going up against the Duke Blue Devils. James Madison comes into this game fresh off a comfortable opening round upset win over Wisconsin. James Madison has been a solid team all season long. They looked very good down the stretch. They're an elite offensive team that can rebound the ball. They play really good defense. There's not a lot of weaknesses to really find for this squad overall. They're just very, very good. In their win over Wisconsin, we saw them come out and dominate the first half. They were not slow getting out of the gate at all. They had 3 starters scoring double figures. Their bench produced really well. Their bench scored 21 points, not something you often see in the NCAA tournament with these top-heavy rosters. James Madison didn't even shoot the ball very well from 3 in that win. They went only 5 of 17 from long distance. They did do a good job of getting to the rim and putting pressure on the officials. They shot 30 free throws in that game and knocked down 21 of them. They're a pretty good free throw shooting team. They actually won the battle of the boards by 1 rebound against Wisconsin. It wasn't exactly a dominant performance, but it shows that they can rebound against bigger, better teams from power conferences. This squad doesn't really rely on any one big-time leading scorer, which is actually a strength, I think, in the tournament. Terrence Edwards is putting up 17 points per game and 3.5 assists, but the fact that he only scored 14 points wasn't really a big problem for them in that game. They won pretty comfortably. They looked like the better team for sure, and they look like they're ready to take on the challenge of the Duke Blue Devils. Duke played against Vermont in the opening round and got the win and cover for us, but man, they did not look that good. This was a game that it felt like Vermont was very much in way down the stretch, way until late in the game when Duke was able to string together a couple solid possessions. Duke's offense just does not look good if they aren't making their threes, and JMU is a team that can really defend the three-point line. I'm not too scared of Filipowski. He's their leading scorer, but he doesn't really look like the kind of guy that's going to put up a ton of offense unless everything really breaks his way. Duke hangs their hat on the defensive end. They're going to try to slow the game down once again, and they're going to try and rely on that defense. They're decent rebounding, and they're going to try and put up some offense, but man, are they really a better offensive team than James Madison? I don't really think so, guys. That's going to be a tough call for me to make there if I'm trying to lean on the Duke offensive production being better than James Madison. I know that's weird talking about an ACC team. Some of the ACC teams have looked really good. Duke, they did not impress me in the first round. James Madison is getting 7.5 points in this game. James Madison is also 19-14-1 against the spread this season, so we don't have to be too scared of Duke's solid against the spread numbers. Give me James Madison the points in this one. I think they're live to win this game. I know you see me wearing a Duke hat in this one, but this is no homer pick. We are going against the Blue Devils. Give me James Madison and the points in this game. Next up, we've got another ACC team in the Clemson Tigers going up against Baylor. Clemson comes into this game fresh off a dominant performance against New Mexico in their opening round game. Clemson absolutely dominated in that one. They came out ahead in the first half 42-28, so dominating right out of the gate. They won the second half too in an absolute blowout. Clemson shot the ball well from 3 in that game. They got to the free throw line. They kept things about even on the boards, which is pretty wild to have such a dominant win when you're only even on the boards. That's kind of crazy. In general, this season, Clemson did not look very good at the end of the year. They lost 3 of their last 4 overall and looked like they were stumbling coming into the NCAA tournament, but they figured things out. It looks like they Their rebounding hasn't really been amazing all season long. Their defense is good, their offense is good, but they're not really elite type numbers. And when you look at the schedule that they were playing through in the ACC, it doesn't really get me going too much. This team had some decent wins in their non-conference schedule, but in the middle of the season and kind of there towards the end, they just weren't playing that great. PJ Hall is a solid scorer. Chase Hunter is a solid point guard. This team definitely has some pieces, and they're going to need all of them to play well in this one as they go up against the Baylor Bears. Baylor absolutely dominated against Colgate in their opening round game, as we expected. The Baylor Bears are an elite team. They finished in 3rd place in the Big 12, and they have all the ingredients you need to make a deep NCAA tournament run. Baylor's a very long, athletic team. They can play great defense. They can dominate the boards given the opportunity. Against Colgate, we saw Baylor hold a significant advantage on the boards. They shot the ball really well from 3, which is a great sign. They're not bothered by these different balls or this different court that they're playing on. Baylor shot nearly 60% from the field overall. Those are some pretty staggering numbers. The Bears are a great team against the spread this season. They're 20, 11, and 2 against the spread overall this year. That is a crazy number. Clemson is not a slouch against the spread either, but we're not too worried about that. They're 18, 14, and 1, came against some relatively weak competition. Baylor's came going against the heart of the Big 12, teams that are having a lot of success here in the NCAA tournament. Jacoby Walker is an absolute monster. Ray J. Dennis is a monster. This team is poised to make a deep run, and I don't think they're going to be slowed down here by Clemson. Baylor's minus 4.5 in this one. Give me the Baylor Bears. I think Clemson is going to not look nearly as good in this game. New Mexico pretty much collapsed against them in the opening round, and Baylor is going to come out and dominate. Next up, we got Grand Canyon taking on Alabama. Grand Canyon easily handled St. Mary's in the opening round. They won 75-66, so it wasn't exactly a blowout, but a 9-point win in this one felt pretty good. Grand Canyon dominated the second half. They played really, really well down the stretch in that game. We saw the Lopes win despite losing the rebounding battle, and despite shooting only 5 of 18 from the field and only 43% from the field overall. 4 of their starters scored in double figures. Their bench did not produce a lot, but they were able to soak up some minutes with Wurr and Blackshirt Jr. soaking up some minutes, if not producing a lot of points. This team did a great job of getting to the free throw line in a game that saw them shoot a lot of free throws and St. Mary's not shoot a lot of free throws. Over the course of the season, we've seen Grand Canyon really look good, especially at the end of the year as they played their way through the WAC tournament. Tyron Grant Foster is a monster. This team puts up a ton of points. They've got the athleticism, they've got the shooting. They're a very, very good defensive team overall. They crash the boards well. I expect them to actually have a bounce back rebounding performance in this one, and they're going to need it going up against Alabama. The Crimson Tide are one of the most high-powered offenses in the nation this season. They don't really play much defense, that's true, and they didn't play any defense in their opening round game against Charleston. They let the Cougars make a big comeback. Alabama did get the win and cover for us, but man, things got a little bit sketchy there at the very end. Mark Sears is an absolute monster for this team. They play at a crazy pace, so their rebounding and scoring numbers are off the charts. This squad just really doesn't play any defense. The question is going to be, are they going to lock in on the defensive end in this game? Alabama shot 56% from 3-point range in their opening round win. Are they really going to be able to replicate those kind of numbers? I don't think so. Math would just tell us that is unlikely to happen again. You just usually don't knock down that many of your long-range attempts. I don't care how good of a team you are. They also pretty convincingly lost the rebounding battle. If they lose the rebounding battle to Grand Canyon, this thing could have a whole different look to it. We see the Grand Canyon is 19-14 against the spread overall this season. Alabama is 18-15 against the spread, so that's pretty much a push for us, but we're looking at Grand Canyon plus 5.5 in this one. They can slow down Alabama just a little bit. They're also just as athletic as Alabama, and I feel like the Crimson Tide are due for a little bit of shooting regression, where Grand Canyon is actually due to have a slightly better shooting night. We're taking the Lopes in this one. Give me Grand Canyon and the points. I think they find a way to keep this game very, very close, and I could see them winning this one straight up, so if you wanted to sprinkle the money line, that's okay with me. Next up, we're looking at Northwestern going up against Yukon. This is by far the biggest spread of the day, with Northwestern plus 14 in this one. We see the Wildcats coming into this game fresh off of a solid opening round win over FAU. A lot of people had Northwestern falling in that opening round game. They took care of business though. It took them overtime to do it, but they came away with a very convincing win in overtime, outscoring the Owls 19-7 in the extra period. The Wildcats did not have a great shooting night. They did win the battle of the boards, but it was pretty competitive. Obviously, this is a very, very close game. Both teams struggled at times. Both teams shot the ball well at times. We saw Lamborg score 27 points in this game. All season long, Northwestern has been a solid offensive team that can also play some defense, but their rebounding is a big concern. Although their rebounding looked very good against FAU, so maybe that isn't as big of a problem as we thought it was. Boo Buie is an absolute monster. He's one of the best point guards in the nation. He's averaging almost 20 points and 5 assists per game, and I think he's due for a little bit of a bounce back performance. He went only 8 of 20 from the field in that win over FAU. He did score 22 points. He had 5 steals and 4 assists. this, so I actually think he's in for a little bit of a better night. And believe me, he's going to need it going up against Yukon. The Huskies looked absolutely dominant in their opening round win over Stetson. This team has been fantastic all season long. Obviously, that was a cupcake win for them in the first round, and they've earned it as a #1 seed. The Huskies are just a team, it feels like they have zero weaknesses, but it also feels like they haven't played a tough game in quite some time. At the end of their regular season, they got a cupcake game against Marquette, who was banged up, did not have their full roster available. Before that, they beat St. John's, so they weren't exactly coming into this game playing a murderer's row. The question will be whether or not Yukon can dominate on the boards in this game. They definitely have the players to possibly do that, but we saw Northwestern look so good on the glass in their last game. Maybe that's not as big of a concern. Guys, I don't have a fantastic read on this game necessarily. We're leaning towards Northwestern plus 14. I think they find a way to keep this close. Yukon hasn't been tested in the tournament yet. Northwestern can shoot 3. You can sprinkle that first half Northwestern in there. Boo Buie is a monster. He can slow the game down if he wants to, and I think he'll probably want to do that against Yukon. If it's a slightly slower paced game, we like the points even more in this one. 14 is a ton of points. Give me Northwestern plus 14 in this one as a small lean. Next up, we've got the Texas A&M Aggies going against the Houston Cougars. Texas A&M comes into this game fresh off a dominant opening round win over Nebraska. The Aggies have looked great all season long, and behind Wade Taylor and his 20 points per game, they just continue to look very, very good. In the win over Nebraska, we saw Wade Taylor go off for 25 points. 3 A&M starters scored over 20 points. They had 2 players scoring double figures coming off the bench. Was a great look for them. If you can take some pressure off the starters with some bench production in the NCAA tournament, it is a huge, huge help. Texas A&M shot well over 50% from 3-point range. I do expect that number to maybe regress a little bit, and it's definitely going to regress some against Houston, but there's no doubt that this is a team that can shoot the ball from deep. Texas A&M has been a very good rebounding team over the course of the season. Their defense is not amazing. There's no way around that. Their defense just isn't really top tier. They do have the unique situation of having already played Houston once this season. Texas A&M played at Houston earlier in the year. They lost that game by only 4 points after making a solid second half comeback. In that game, we saw Texas A&M shoot the ball pretty well from 3-point range, making 9 threes in that game. That's pretty solid, and they were very competitive on the boards. I think that's something to look at coming into this one. Houston was very dominant in their opening round game as well. Obviously, they were playing a terrible opponent. As their 1 seed, they get the cupcake game in the first round. Houston has been on a whole nother level all season long. They're an elite defensive team, an elite rebounding team. They can score the ball well enough. They did get really, really just dominated by Iowa State in their last regular season game, or the regular season tournament game, losing out on the Big 12 tournament championship. But just in general, this team is very, very good. LJ Cryer is a monster. In their win over Longwood, we saw 3 starters scoring double figures. We saw Dunn score 17 points off the bench, and we saw Houston shoot 47% from 3-point range. They only made like half their free throws though. Houston is just not a good free throw shooting team, and that's a big problem when you're trying to cover a 10-point number like this. Texas A&M is 17 and 18 against the spread over the course of the season, but Houston's only 17, 16 and 2 against the spread over their season. So looking at this one, that's way too many points for me from Texas A&M. I think they find a way to keep this game very, very close. Give me Texas A&M plus 10 in this one. Last but not least, we've got Yale going up against San Diego State. Yale comes into this game fresh off a big upset in the opening round. They took down Auburn 78-76. It was hell of a game. Yale managed to get the win thanks to shooting the lights out from 3-point range. They went 9 of 20 from deep. They went 21 of 31 from the free throw line. They got to the line a ton. They stayed competitive on the boards. They didn't commit a ton of turnovers, and we really saw Auburn just shoot themselves in the foot time and time again. Auburn didn't shoot the ball that well from 3-point range. They should have dominated the boards against this Ivy League opponent, and they did win the Battle of the Boards by 5, but it was just not enough in the end. Once Yale had won that game, they really celebrated like they had won the whole tournament. It was pretty wild. It was a huge, huge win for their program, I suppose, but man, that kind of makes me feel like this is a big letdown spot for them going up against San Diego State. The Aztecs played great to beat UAB in the first round, a close game against a very, very tough opening round opponent. We saw San Diego State play their trademark solid defense in that game. They won the Battle of the Boards by a very slim margin. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but they did knock down their free throws, and they were able to hold the dynamic UAB offense in check. That is a very good look. All season long, San Diego State has been a very good defensive and rebounding team that leans on Jadon Ledee for their scoring. He's putting up 21 points per game, shooting nearly 56% from the field. Against UAB, we saw him have an absolutely insane performance, putting up 32 points, and I think we could see something very similar from him in this one going against a Yale team that's going to be be overmatched athletically and just in general. Yale is 16-12 against the spread, and San Diego State is only 13-20 against the spread. But in this one, we see San Diego State's only -5.5. That's not enough points for me, guys. Give me San Diego State to get the win and cover. I don't think Yale is going to be able to keep this one close. It's going to be a letdown spot for them. They've already clearly made it farther in this tournament than they expected to, and I don't think they advance any farther. We're going to see San Diego State absolutely dominate on the boards, and defensively, they're going to get a comfortable win. That's all the NCAA tournament games for today, guys. Hit that like button for good luck on all your bets, and subscribe if you're new. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description to check out StumpTheSpread.com, and we will see you guys tomorrow for more NCAA basketball action.